Imagine being trapped where human rights are forgotten and survival is a daily struggle. Some of the world's most notorious prisons, like La Sabaneta in Venezuela and Black Dolphin in Russia, exemplify this nightmare filled with overcrowding, violence, and disease. Join us as we explore the 10 most dangerous prisons you would never want to find yourself in. Number 10. La Sabaneta Prison, built in 1958 in Maracaibo, Venezuela, is one of the most dangerous prisons in the world. This prison is notorious for its extreme overcrowding, unsanitary conditions, and complete control by criminal gangs. Originally designed to hold only 700 people, it often has over 3,000 inmates. One of the darkest events in its history was the 1994 riot, which resulted in the deaths of over 100 people. The riot, caused by a conflict between rival gangs, showed the extreme violence and brutality within the prison. The poor sanitary conditions led to the rapid spread of diseases like malaria, tuberculosis, and HIV among the prisoners. Inmates had to bribe the gangs to secure food and safety. Number 9. Black Dolphin Prison was built in 1745 in Sol-Iletsk, Russia. It holds the most dangerous criminals, including serial killers, terrorists, and kidnappers. Inmates are kept in complete isolation and must move with their heads down and blindfolded when inside the prison. The goal is to prevent them from seeing their surroundings and to stop any escape attempts. Round-the-clock surveillance and numerous cameras make any form of misconduct or escape impossible. Stories of intense psychological pressure, isolation, and small solitary confinement cells reveal the endless hardships of life in this prison. Black Dolphin is known as one of the most impregnable prisons in the world. Number 8. Gitarama Central Prison, built in 1960 in Gitarama, Rwanda, is a tragic symbol of horrific prison conditions. Initially designed for only 500 prisoners, its population skyrocketed to over 6,000 after the Rwandan genocide in the 1990s. The severe overcrowding meant that prisoners often had no space to sit or sleep and had to stand for most of the day. A lack of food and medical supplies, along with poor hygiene, turned this prison into a hellish place for its inmates. Reports of extreme hunger led to instances of cannibalism among prisoners, highlighting the brutal and inhumane conditions. Number 7. Guldani Prison, built in 1990 in Tbilisi, Georgia, became infamous due to widespread violence and systematic torture. The prison gained international attention when videos of brutal beatings by guards were leaked, sparking public outrage in Georgia. In this prison, inmates endure horrifying sanitary conditions, physical and psychological abuse, and constant pressure. Overcrowding and a lack of food have turned Guldani into one of the worst prisons in the world. It symbolizes the widespread human rights violations within Georgia's justice system. Number 6. San Juan de Lurigancho Prison, built in 1960 in Lima, Peru, is known for its corruption, violence, and lack of proper oversight. Officially designed for 2,500 prisoners, it has often housed over 10,000, leading to incredibly inhumane living conditions. Lurigancho is notorious for its large presence of drug cartels and smugglers. Inmates have access to weapons, and violent conflicts between gangs occur frequently. Corrupt guards allow drugs and weapons to be smuggled into the prison in exchange for bribes. The poor sanitary conditions and rapid spread of infectious diseases only add to the already overwhelming crisis in this prison. Number 5. Bang Kwang Central Prison, built in 1931 in Nonthaburi, Thailand, is famous for its harsh conditions, earning it the nickname Bangkok Hilton. It houses inmates serving life sentences and death row prisoners and is especially notorious among foreign prisoners. Inmates are forced to wear heavy chains in the early weeks of their imprisonment, causing severe physical problems. Many prisoners suffer from malnutrition and illnesses caused by a lack of sanitation. The psychological pressure and total isolation from the outside world break the spirits of inmates. Foreign prisoners who can't pay bribes to guards often face the worst conditions. Do you want to know more and more about the unknowns of the world? So be sure to subscribe and like this video. Number 4. Nairobi Prison, built in 1911 in Nairobi, Kenya, is notorious for its disastrous conditions. Originally built during British colonial rule, the prison has seen little improvement. Inmates, often outnumbering the prison's capacity by 4 times, live in extremely unhealthy conditions. One of the biggest problems here is the widespread spread of diseases like tuberculosis, HIV, and typhoid. Inmates are often deprived of food and medical care, and violence between guards and prisoners is common. Nairobi prison has become a symbol of Kenya's inefficient justice system, and despite human rights campaigns, the situation has not improved significantly. Number 3. Diyarbakir Prison, built in 1980 in Diyarbakir, Turkey, is infamous for its dark history of torture, violence, and widespread human rights violations. Originally built to hold political prisoners, it became a site for the brutal repression of Kurdish activists and opponents of the Turkish government during the 1980s and 1990s. Reports from this prison reveal shocking levels of torture, abuse, and unethical treatment of prisoners. Violent protests inside the prison have often led to bloody clashes between prisoners and guards. Inmates live in appalling conditions, with overcrowding worsening the crisis. Number 2. La Sabaneta Prison, built in 1867 in Paris, France, is one of the most notorious prisons in Europe. Initially designed to modernize France's penal system, it gradually became a terrifying place for inmates. This prison is infamous for its high suicide rates among prisoners. The extreme psychological pressure, isolation, and difficult living conditions in tiny cells have pushed many inmates to despair. Violent riots have also marked its history, and poor sanitation has led to outbreaks of diseases like tuberculosis. La Sabaneta is the challenges faced by the prison system in France and Europe. Number 1. Camp 22, built in 1959 near the city of Horyong, North Korea, is one of the most brutal political prisoner camps in the world. Known as the Hell Camp, it holds political prisoners and their families under horrific and inhuman conditions. Reports of severe torture, forced labor, and inhumane experiments on prisoners have surfaced. The prisoners of Camp 22 have no hope of release, and many don't even know the exact reason for their imprisonment. With complete isolation and no contact with the outside world, it has become a symbol of repression and injustice in North Korea.